Hi, my name is Michaela Nielsen. I am currently a Utah Valley University student majoring in business. I am about 2 semesters out from finishing and being completely graduated from college. I am interested in this position because I have experience working in the residential treatment facilities, and about I've been there for roughly 5 years of working with teenage girls in residential treatment. Um, a successful presentation I gave was one for my prior position at Vista Treatment Centers. When I was a supervisor, I had to lead and direct a lot of staff meetings. And in those presentations, we would go over skills and techniques to utilize working with the kids, helping them on their therapeutic journeys, creating safe environments, and so on and so forth. I had one session where we were going over the positive control system, or de escalation, as some people like to refer to it. Um, it was successful because we worked on how to identify situations that need to be de escalated and how to calmly and assertively de escalate, as well as prevent scenarios in which we would have to fully restrain a client. This was successful because a lot of staff retained that information, and it ended up making them better employees and better staffing for our clients for that reason. A time when I had to work a task with a difficult coworker was somewhat often with my residential treatment center. I had a coworker who we did not really get along. Um, it was a clash of personalities, so to speak. And she worked with majority of my shifts with me. She was, one of my staffing units while I was supervising the shift. The best that I did was just kept everything civil. I never let on that there was an issue between us amongst my peers. I never badmouth talked her with my peers or with any of my coworkers, my clients. No one ever heard that there was an issue um, on my end of things. I don't know from her end of things what, if anything, had happened, but I know I'd always try to keep it professional, try to keep it civil, and just, wasn't going to be your best friend, but I made sure that I was going to be a good coworker and a good boss with her. With working in the residential treatment center, that kind of scenario does come up often. So we have um, certain situations where we do have to restrain a client for either their safety or the safety of our other clients in the house. Um, this There was a scenario in which we had a client who was getting highly escalated. Uh, she was not working with the de-escalation tactics we had been taught, and it just kept getting more and more intense. So it came to a point where we had to decide whether we needed to restrain her or remove her and let her calm down. In the event, restraining probably would have been fastest, but um, it would not have been the most effective method, as it tends to escalate people more until they essentially wear themselves out. They gas out, essentially. So, with that, we took we weighed like the pros and cons of, like, okay, what's going to be the difference if we restrain her now versus if we take her to a different area. And this was all within a matter of minutes. It wasn't, sat on for a lengthy period of time. It was, okay, what we need to react now. What's the best way to do this? Um, the cons of removing her and putting her in a different area away from the other clients so she could calm herself down was that it did remove some of my staffing figures. So one of our staff was left somewhat out of ratio with the remaining clients. There were clients that were triggered by this other client's situation, and they were having a hard time, and so she had to handle a couple other clients getting upset and very emotional until the other three of us could go return to the MIDI, or at least one of us could break away to return and sit with the other clients until everything had settled. Overall, it was successful because we prevented restraint. The client ended up utilizing the skills that she was working with in therapy, and the milieu was settled, and everybody was calm and okay by the end of the night, and everybody went to bed okay. So, this is a kind of one of our funnier comical stories that we like to talk about. Um, so, with working as supervisor, I would have additional 3 staff that would work under me, and each staff would have an assigned list of chores or tasks that they would need to complete per shift. So, one of these tasks is cooking dinner for our clientele. On one of my team, I had a staff who he would avoid cooking. He would not do anything to help learn. He just did not feel comfortable cooking. And it got to where the other staff were kind of resentful because we would always be the ones cooking and doing everything else. So one night I told him it was an easy meal, very simple. It was just beef dip sandwiches, I believe. Very simple to do. And so I gave him the instructions on how to do it. And I just said, look, if you need any help, feel free to call me. I'll come up and help you. Um, our day chef, had pre-made some salad dressing and left it in the fridge alongside like the beef consomme. And so about I'd say half hour into the other activities that the other staff were handling while he was supposed to be cooking dinner, I went to go check on him, and he was boiling the dressing that the chef had made for the sandwiches, which we clarified. We talked about like, hey, this isn't how it's supposed to work. So it it was definitely a scenario in which if I had handled it, I could have made the dinner better and faster. But it happens. It's a learning process. He was able to be assigned with a staff in the kitchen from that point on, so he could learn how to cook and learn how to make these meals for these kids. So the outcome wasn't the greatest on his end because he boiled dressing for roast beef sandwiches. But overall, it was positive because we learned, okay, we need to pair him with someone to learn how to do this method instead of just setting him on his own. And in the end, dinner turned out okay. We had to go get some more supplies, but kids were fine with it. It wasn't late. It wasn't too late. It was still a few minutes, but not severely late. And overall, it was, it's a good laugh now. We all like to talk and laugh about it. But so overall, it was a interesting and positive experience. So this is a scenario that sometimes we do have to deal with in residential treatment. Um, Oftentimes we have clients who come in and they don't want to do the therapy work. They don't want to work on themselves or do any schooling because we are a somewhat border school. We continue their education as well as their therapeutic education. And every so often we'll have a client that just won't comply, won't do anything, and because we have a facility that we don't force them to do things, we can't really do a whole lot. And so it depends on the length of time, how long they go. In these scenarios, staff, clinical directors, treatment teams, we all have a meeting to discuss this client and what we think is the best option, best therapeutic route for them. Sometimes after, a month or two of a client not complying or not doing any work or just, causing chaos within the milieu just because they don't want to be there. Sometimes we have to make the decision that in order to help the other clients succeed in their therapeutic journey, we have to remove that individual from our program. It is a tough decision because you do build a bond and a relationship with these kids and you don't want to give up on them, but sometimes it's not there. If they're not willing to put in the effort or the time, we can't be successful with them and we can't hinder our other clients' progress based off of one individual. The results of these usually is there's a lot of sadness because they do build friendships, and there is some anger, some frustration, but overall, the milieu, once they have their grievance period, which is roughly runs about a week, after about that time frame, they bounce back to where they're supposed to be. Everybody becomes more successful, and sometimes it's better for that client that they move into a facility that better suits their needs from what we can provide them. Setting goals for myself. Personally, I keep a high bar for myself. I know what my expectations are. I know how I need to perform. I know what my drive and work ethic are like. So for me, setting a goal is having an idea, figuring out how I'm going to achieve it, and then just continuously working to it. As for my teams, it varies day to day as to what's needed. I mean, overall, the overall goal is to keep every client safe and secure, and nobody's hurt, nobody's injured, everybody's alive and well. For day-to-day stuff, it would be goals of let's get this task done, let's clean this side of the house, let's do this, that sort of goal setting. And really, in order to just take care of it and address it, we decide what our goal is for the shift, and from there we work to achieve that goal throughout the shift. So it's not a consistent lengthy goal, but for short-term goal, it's very successful because everybody helps pitch in, everybody helps adhere to make this goal the what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry. To make the goal successful, so to speak. The only questions that I have about the company or any of that would relate entirely to how you handle high escalation situations, what is expected of the relationship between your staffing unit and clients, as well as what expectations are set for supervisors running shifts. And these questions, if you don't have the answers to them right now, I'm completely fine being contacted later. You can reach me by email. It's there on my resume, or via cell phone. It is also on my resume. So any information that you wish to share about the company so I can learn how it competes differently with the one I currently work for would be greatly appreciated. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. I look forward to hearing from you too. Bye-bye.